welcome to the Team Leal kitchen. This is Trudy. For the full recipe for today's meal, head over to our blog. Today I am stepping out of my comfort zone and making Chana Masala as well as gluten-free naan. Again, for the full recipe, go ahead and head over to our blog and don't forget to subscribe so you get awesome recipes every week. This is a favorite recipe of my family's, so let's get right into it. Vamos a cocinar. The first thing you're going to do is grab a heavy bottom pot, like this nice one I've got right here. Put a little bit of oil in it and get your onion sauteing. The important part of cooking Chana Masala, I find, as someone that's Dominican, and it's not part of really my cultural cooking, but I love it, is to get the spices in there and get them to cook really well and get them really fragrant. So you're gonna get your ground cumin and you're gonna put that into that pot. It is favored to get fresh spices and use a mortar and pestle, but ay Dios mío, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm a busy mom and I just wanna get this meal into my kids' belly. They literally eat this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you'll get your salt in with your cumin and your onion, give that a very quick stir, and then we're gonna get all of our other spices in there. I'm just making sure that my heat is at the right temperature. You don't wanna have it too high so that you don't burn everything. So there's a lot of garlic in this. I'm pretty sure I put like 2 tablespoons, which is equals to 6 cloves. It's a lot of garlic. We love garlic in this house, though. It's delicious, and it has anti-inflammatory properties. So yay for that. We're gonna get our ginger and our cilantro. Now, let's keep in mind, this is a no judgment zone. Yes, I am using pureed ginger and pureed cilantro. I do not keep it fresh because it always seems to go bad. They're just not spices that I use a lot of. I do prefer this to powders, so that's what I'm using. And then I put my cilantro in. I ended up using this literal entire tube of cilantro. It was almost 3 ounces of pureed cilantro. I ended up cutting it open at the end and scraping it out like a good Latina should. All right, so you're gonna mix all of that together and then grab your other spices. I am using some roasted coriander. It's what I had, but you can use regular coriander as well, just the powdered one, or you can use the fresh spices and put them in a mortar and pestle if you have all that time in the world. I'd like to switch lives with you if you do as well, just throwing that out there. And then turmeric. Oh my gosh, so much to say about turmeric. It's amazing, anti-inflammatory. It's such a good spice. I use it in my tofu scrambles when I'm not feeding Jack, who's allergic to soy. So you'll want to mix this up, and it's kind of going to look like a space, and you are going to cook it for a couple of minutes, and you'll smell all that fragrance coming up, and you'll know it's time to start putting in all your other ingredients. I use whole tomatoes, and then I blend them up in my Vitamix, but you can just use diced tomatoes or pureed tomatoes, whatever you would like. But it's about 30 ounces. So there I am pouring it in after I've blended it in my Vitamix. Love my Vitamix. It's amazing. And then all you have to do after you get that in there, is that a word? I meant to say in there. That's what I can speak English. I can speak English. So you'll get that in there and then you'll stir that around, and you will then grab your chickpeas, which are the star of this recipe. You'll drain both of those cans and rinse them out and just dump them into your pot, and you're gonna stir that around, and you're pretty much done for the next 20 minutes. This is when I actually start making my naan. So we'll let this chill out for about 20 minutes, and once it's done, and you'll feel like your chickpeas are nice and soft, but not super soft and mushy, gross. You'll add your lemon, and then once you squeeze that in, I actually take my lemon and then I'll flip it over and I do it again because I guess I'm extra, as the kids would say nowadays. I don't even know if they use that word anymore, but whatever. I'm trying to get every last drop out of that damn lemon. You'll just stir that around a little bit, but your heat is off at this point. At this point, you'll want to taste what you've made. If you need to add more spices like salt or anything like that, go ahead and do that. I did not need to, so I added our final spice, which is our garam masala, and you're just gonna add that, stir it in, and remove it from the heat, and get to making that naan. I didn't measure my garam masala because soy Latina, I do everything al ojo. I apologize, friends. Let's get to making this gluten-free naan. You add water, make sure your water is nice and warm. You'll add a little bit of sugar, and that just helps that yeast feed off of that sugar. Now, on the side of your jar of yeast, it will even say what temperature to put it at. I put mine at like 105, 107, and I use 2 teaspoons of yeast here. I just stirred that up, and you just kind of set it aside and let it be. It will start foaming up. If it doesn't start foaming up, your yeast is dead. Start again. I measure out my flour. This is not baking, so it's a little bit more forgiving than baking, but I did measure out my flour in grams. And then I take 1 cup of flour and I start by putting only that in my bowl because I'm not actually going to use everything that I measured out. So you'll get your flour into your big bowl and a little bit of salt. You'll want to make sure when you put it in that you do stir it really well. You'll notice to the right of me a little bowl with brown stuff in it. That's my flax egg. So I make a little well in the middle of this flour, and I grab that foamed up yeast. See how foamy it is? It's alive! And I place it in that well. Now, I made a mistake here. I should have taken my flax egg that I talked to you about, that's right there, and all my other wet ingredients and added it to that yeast stuff and then put it in with it, but I didn't. And I realized I messed up, and I was like, oh crud, I messed up. So I started mixing, and then I was like, uh-oh. So I got all my wet ingredients and I started putting them together. So that's my flax egg. It was just 1 tablespoon of ground flax with 3 tablespoons of water. And then I just add some olive oil to that, and I'm also going to be adding some yogurt. So you'll put that all together into a small bowl, and you whisk it all up together, and then you'll just put that into the flour concoction. Granted, you should be putting it into the yeast concoction and then making the well in the flour and then putting it all in there, but I did it wrong. Because hello, my name is Trudy and I have ADHD. So on my blog, I did correct everything, so everything's written correctly. I just screwed up the day that I did it. I'm so sorry. So now that I've got it all stirred up, I'm literally just adding it to that flour with the yeast, even though it should have been added to the well of flour with the yeast concoction. But again, my apologies. I'll tell you what sucks. You know what sucks? Having ADHD and not taking medication. Oh my gosh. So stir that all up, and it's gonna be really, really sticky at first. That's why you're gonna keep that flour next to your bowl. You're slowly gonna add a little bit of flour at a time. I added, I would say like maybe 2/3 of the flour that I measured out. So you'll just slowly add flour until you get a workable dough. So let's talk about gluten-free dough and rising. I did not realize that gluten-free dough can only rise once. When I was making this, I actually tried to have it rise twice. Big mistake. So instead of doing that, I'm going to show you the way you should do it. I just don't have video of laying it out with oil on it. So you'll want to flour your cutting board, and then you're just going to take small little chunks off of your dough. And again, it will not have risen yet, and you're just gonna actually take that dough, roll it into a little circle, and then you're gonna use your rolling pin or whatever you have to roll out dough and make it into like an oblong shape. I don't have a video of this showing this, I'm sorry, but you'll actually cover it with a little bit of olive oil, like with a brush, and then cover that with saran wrap. Cover all of them with saran wrap and let them rise for about 40 minutes to an hour. That will allow your naan to be much fluffier than the way my naan came out. You're learning from my mistakes, and I make a lot of them. Okay, moving along. You'll get a cast iron pan, and you'll put a little bit of oil or butter. I used my Miyoko's butter, and you're gonna put your naan in there, and you're gonna start seeing these little kind of bubbles form. I almost think of it as like pancakes, but the edges will not bubble, but see the little bubbles that are popping up? That is the magic of naan. Those pockets will soak up all that yummy sauce from the Chana Masala. So once you see some of those bubbles come up, you'll put it on one side for about 2 minutes, flip it over, and that's what it looks like. Oh my gosh. You guys, this is super yummy. Again, because you'll do the rise the right way instead of mine. Yours will be a lot fluffier. But these were delicious. Look at all those bubbles. Every one of those bubbles is just a delicious pocket waiting to soak up that delicious flavor from the Chana Masala that you made. So you'll just take them, and I just do one at a time because I'm leery, and I just put them all in a plate, and it's really hard because all my kids try to grab them. So this is Jackson with the Chana Masala. He loves it. He literally eats his breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can serve Chana Masala over steamed rice or with gluten-free naan. I hope your family enjoys it as much as my family does. Buen provecho.